Hey guys, my name is Dylan. I'm here with Immanuel, the sniper in the building. He got a 3-point, man. Don't mess with him. And we're here. We're going to be speaking today. It is our second episode for Lost and Found for our Let's Just Chat. I really haven't found a title for it, but
we'll just chat.
We'll just chat.
That's what
and
it is.
Pretty much what we're going to be going over today for the Vodcast is going to be the importance of sexual purity, of sexual integrity, and what that all means, I guess, as what we found through our mentors and through our experiences and through our obedience and what we've been reading through the Bible. And we'll just touch this briefly upon it.
Yeah.
So we'll start off with we'll just define, I guess, what sexual purity is first.
Yeah.
So how would you define?
Surrender. Giving in. I would say, because it's very easy for us to give in to our desires because we desire that pleasure. Romans 7 says we do the things that we don't want to do.
Yeah.
But
we don't do what we want to do.
Right.
We should be doing. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess for me, sexual purity is saying no to those easy stuff,
Yeah.
saying, like, denying yourself to what some people would say hurt of a lifetime. It could eventually drag all the way through that until eventually, you turn to God and repent. But, and the hard part is actually saying no.
Yeah.
To your desires. So I think what it is that we have to just focus our eyes on God instead of giving into our earthly desires.
Yeah, like sexual purity for me, like that's why I said one of the things I just mentioned was not just sexual purity but sexual integrity. This sort of integrity is not just doing the right thing by moral standards,
right,
but it's more of the real terms of what integrity is God's integrity. What does God say is right? How do we align ourselves with that? And that's what true integrity is. So sexual integrity is aligning ourselves with what the scripture says we should be doing in that sort of sense. And I mean, we could both agree on that. Like that's what that's sort of like there's just so much that comes out of it when we are obedient in that sense. So defining that, how would you what do you like? And we also kind of define like what the Bible says in that sort of sense, abstaining from that sexual immorality, and the Bible going deep into that in the sense it does mention it, right?
Yes.
So, and it's so funny because I'm kind of gonna bring it up too because it actually just came to mind where there are some, like you'll notice like some. And you can tell me what you think about this too. Like there are some celebrities and there are some pastors that have been interviewed, and they ask them like, "Hey, what is your take on sexual purity?" And they'll beat around the bush in a sense. What do you take on that? If you were in that position,
okay,
what?
Like the whole world's watching me.
You already know.
The whole world's watching me, and I am to define what sexual purity means. I think, if you're not Christian, you won't understand where we're coming from. Just because the world says that it's okay to have fun, right?
Yeah.
But if you're coming from our point of view and our way of thinking through God's eyes, sexual purity is getting pleasure from God and only God.
Yo, facts.
In terms of how do you get there? Simple answer, Sunday school answer: read the Bible. Pray. I think one of my biggest things is like build a community within you to sustain, and I'm talking about godly people around you.
Yeah.
To keep you accountable, to
keep you in check.
Keep you in check, because I don't want to speak for the ladies, but us guys, we're horn dogs. Like I'm being truly honest, you know, and the hardest part is letting that go and pursuing what God really wants us to do.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think we actually were texting before this, and we did talk about like a I forget the name of the book now. It just like literally
Every Man's Battle.
Yes, Every Man's Battle, and we were just talking about like that's a really really awesome book.
Yes. It is.
And I'm pretty sure he comes out. I think his wife helps him write it, or his wife writes it. The female version of it, I think.
Every Young Woman's, or there's
something like he has a bunch of different like.
Yeah, there's
a bunch of different series that he has.
There's a couple.
But that just speaks right into what you were talking about. Just letting. It's honestly like surrendering, like you were saying earlier, like this sort of surrender of what you want.
Right.
And actually taking a step back and humbling yourself and be like,
yeah.
Because every time I've done it, I've messed up.
Mm-hmm.
So every time I try to take control, I mess up.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like the same sort of understanding of, you can take the same sort of thing of grace. Like, how do you really know what grace is if you haven't experienced it for yourself? So in that sort of sense, how would you know what sexual purity is if you haven't at least tried, if you haven't surrendered it over, if you keep taking it into your own hands? And that's kind of like what we'd say what the Bible is explaining about. And another question I have is, how would you define what sexual integrity, purity looks like? Because we all know what the world wants it to look like. Like,
of course.
It's because again, sex sells.
Yeah.
You know, these things sell. Like these
Of
things
course.
sell. It's the things that grab people's attention. And what would you say would look like to be?
You know, what I did for a while, because I did struggle with pornographic material, and then I struggled with lust, and I got my pastor to mentor me, and some things that he showed me was, you got to put up guardrails. You know, just like in the highway, when you're about to fall, there's a guardrail about to keep you in check. So what I did for quite some time is I would walk with my head down, because I don't know what's around me. You know, because one little booty could really just stay in your mind and forever, and you could actually use that for later. And you know what's later. And staying away from movies that might have sex in it, which is really tough, because those are some good movies. You know, but something he really told me is that if you really want to change, you really have to hate it. You have to hate what you're going through. Unless, if you don't hate it, then you're not willing to change.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's what it is. You just gotta renew your mind to say, this is not right, this is wrong. Let me go over here and try to lean on God's strength and just hold His hand through this process.
Yeah. Because I know, like you said, those guardrails too, and there's a bunch of different things. Because I've experienced and talking to people as well, is just these guardrails also are like this topic is such a. That's why, like, I'll just read, like we were just speaking about too, is about 1 Thessalonians 4:3. Yeah. So chapter 4 says, "It is God's will that you should be sanctified, that you should avoid sexual immorality."
Right.
So it's so important to becoming like God in the sense there's so much underlying and subconscious sort of not rules, but more like guidelines, like you said, these guardrails that help us. So from this, you learn how to be less prideful, less selfish. Because I just heard a sermon that was saying sexual immorality, all these things it's not just selfish pleasures, but it can also be selfless.
Oh yeah.
There's two sides of the coin here. Right. So it's not just pleasure, but it's also lust. It's not just selfish. It can be selfless.
Of course.
There's a good and bad to these things, and that's staying within those guardrails. What you're talking about. So by us being able to acknowledge what it is to be sexually pure, there's just so much that can come out of it. There's much less me, more of him, like just less selfishness. There's more control. We have more discipline. Yeah. So that discipline that we learn in this area can now be brought to, hey, I'm going to be disciplined in maybe going to the gym now, or maybe reading my Bible, or doing homework and not being, because that's one of the biggest things in school too.
Procrastinating.
Yes, exactly. Yes. So that's sort of
Yeah.
And that's why this verse is so important. Like it just says, hey, you want to know what the will of God is for your life? I want you to be like me.
Right.
And I'm going to give you a step. Try to come to me with this problem that you have, that everybody has. And it's, like you said, it's not just for females, because again, we can't speak for the females, but they have the same desires as what we have. And it is different, but it still has the same foundation of it. There's a right time and a wrong time. And God clearly states that it's supposed to be within marriage. And that's why it's so important. And I kind of did, and I was showing you a little bit about this too, about the studies. I kind of looked up some studies online about on this topic of premarital sex, and like it can lead to it has a higher chance of a poorer quality of marriage. It could lead to that.
I see that.
So
I'm not married, so I could.
Yeah, I can't.
No,
I can't explain. But from the people that we have spoken with, and like there are people who can attest to this. And actually, was just watching a Francis Chan sermon about it, and because he is besides just being a pastor, he also is a marital counselor.
Right.
And he was saying a majority of the people that he's spoken with that it is baggage that you're, and it's one of the heaviest baggages that you're bringing into a relationship. And that goes whether you're married or not married, even trying to just date. Right. It's a baggage that's still weighing on you. Of course. It can affect how you speak to people. It can affect how you treat somebody. Right. And that's one of the things that's why it's just so important to talk about. And it's not something that should be...
It's not really spoken in church also, you know what I'm saying?
It shouldn't be shamed away.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because we all deal with it. It should be something we all wear, and it's a limp that some of us limp harder in this area than others. And when we limp in that, people should come together and do life together. Right. It's not to be like, it's not to be like, that limp, like shit, like get out of here, bro. Like, because in our own hearts, we're dealing with it too. So that, like, the only way we're going to grow is by accepting, like, this is who we are, and to unify within the church and just communities too, because you don't have to be a Christian to unify with someone to get over something that we know we don't want to do. You know what I mean? So, and one of the biggest, like, here's a quote that I saw, and you tell me what you think about this. Okay. You are only as wise as your sexual choices. You are only as wise as your sexual choices. That
it reminded me of a verse in Galatians. It says, you pursue the flesh, you pursue destruction. You pursue the spirit, you pursue eternal life. Yeah. So, I think that sums it up, you know. Yeah. For sure. Being wise through the Holy Spirit is going to give you eternal life.
Yeah. And, like, going back to, like, just while we're closing it out, just, like, being like, the words, like, sanctified, a lot of people, like, I didn't know what it was for quite a bit. Like, there's, like, just some big terms that we use as well that we should be talking about. And, like, sanctification, being sanctified, means to set apart or to be declared as holy. It's just being Christ.
To grow with Christ.
Yes, exactly. And then integrity, like we were defining, it just means saying yes to what God says is right and good, no matter the consequences.
Can we talk more about, like, the effects of it?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because I feel like I gotta say some stuff.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. So this issue, I believe, for people. Is it okay if I take it to the extreme?
Go. Yeah, go for it.
You know how the Bible said that all sin is equal, right? I kind of see being sexually impure as commit. I'm gonna say it anyways.
Hey, just say it. Don't even like.
You know, you're almost killing yourself. You know, you're robbing yourself of that joy that what is God intended it to be. Yeah. That happiness, that pursuit of a wife is. Because I feel like once you get into that, there has to be a reason, right? Multi-billion companies, you know what I'm talking about, pornographic material taking over the globe. I feel like that twists our fantasies of what marriage ought to be.
Yeah, no, I completely agree.
And when it's all over the place, we tend to think that it's okay.
Yeah.
And it's not.
Yeah.
So what I see it as is actually just, why are you trying to kill yourself?
Yeah.
With something that's only gonna last 10 minutes?
Yeah, I think you and I could both also agree, like, it is easier said than done too.
Yeah.
And like you said before, you have to actually hate it.
Yeah.
You have to realize, whoa, this is killing me.
Yeah.
And what the destruction it actually does.
Yeah.
Because people will, I can honestly, yeah, like you said, I can honestly say I dealt with it too. And what we can say is that those few moments, you think, I'm not hurting anybody.
Yeah.
This moment, I'm not hurting anybody.
Right.
But you don't realize not just the eternal, but like on this field that we're on, like this life,
yeah,
we are hurting people.
Of course.
Like we may not see it in that moment, but we're hurting the way that we treat people.
Oh, yeah.
Hurting the way that we look at people, the disrespect towards people that could stem from lust, like from that sort of from that standpoint. That's why it's so important to realize it, grasp it. Like, and in that book too, it says when you have that thought, you hold it captive right away, and you start to really understand. Okay, let's get to the root of this. Why did I just think of that? Oh, because I saw this. Oh, where did that stem from?
Yeah.
Oh, you start to stem back.
The past keeps coming back.
You have to really trace it back. You have to trace things back to really get to the root of it.
Yeah.
And that's how you're really gonna be set free as well. Again, you have to hate it. You have to understand the importance of it. That's literally what we're talking about. It's just why there's so much weight to this thing, man.
Oh yeah.
It affects our entire life.
And I really do believe I've been free from it from almost 2 years now.
Nice.
And I'm not saying I've been free from it. Well, I am, but the temptation is still there. That war with Satan. Oh, I know your past, so let me bring this up when you feel down.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll give you some hula,
Yeah, man. Like that never stops on our walk.
It doesn't.
Every new season that we encounter, that doesn't mean that just because I overcame shame or guilt or whatever, that doesn't mean it's not going to come up again. It just means the tests are just going to pile up.
Right.
That's all it means. And again, does it get easier? There are some points where it does, and there's some points where it doesn't. It's just where you're keeping perspective of where the victories are won.
Yeah.
You're winning your battles where they're supposed to be won.
Yeah.
And like you said, 2 years ago, whatever may be the time for anybody's frame rate of where they've been set free, it doesn't mean that temptation is going to stop. The next season you can be 3 seasons ahead, and by seasons I mean just periods of times of your life where you can be cruising in a sense. Like if I just overcame shame and guilt last season, and this season, like next point in my life, I'm like, okay, for the next year or a couple months, I'm like, I don't feel it. But then after that time, it could come up again.
Oh yeah.
The whole point is just to think back to
how
where
do you
victory.
react?
Yeah. How do
from 2 years from now to now?
Where has my growth been? Where have I been? Where has my sights been? Where have I been keeping my focus on? And what has God pulled me out of? And His faithfulness is literally what gets us through the season after season after season. When we're focusing on that, that's where the strength comes from. And I truly believe that too. Like the temptation will arise, and it will come back, because again, like Satan's been doing this for so long, man.
Oh yeah.
And that's what a lot of people don't realize. It like he knows our game. We might have called it. They might have called it Playboy a while ago, but we just call it Instagram. Yeah. Instagram feed. Oh. We call it Instagram search or the Snapchat. Like their Explorer page. We just call it that now. Yeah. He just changed the words.
He does change it.
He just changed the words, but it's the same exact thing, and it hasn't changed. Yeah. So it's just so important to understand again, and that also goes to like kind of like transitioning into not just the importance of why it is to be pure, but the importance of what's going to happen when you actually when it does occur.
Yeah,
And like what it brings.
You gotta put up those guardrails.
Yeah, and those again, and you learn those guardrails by seeking out accountability, like you said. Like that's where it's gonna come in when you're honest. Like you have to be honest with yourself. It's never gonna.
Yes, it's something I would always hold dear to my heart. Is that my mentor? Every time we met up, he would always end with a question, and that question is, "Did you lie to me today?" And sometimes like, maybe. You know, he knows that, but then at that time I feel convicted, you know. And I love it. I love that he says that because it really shows that he really wants me to get out of it. He really wants me to have a victory in this realm. So
yeah, I feel like, and that goes for anybody out there who knows people who are going through this stuff. It's all about, like you said, you don't have to know so much about this topic. You just have to know you want to be part of someone's life to help them set free. You start
being honest with each other. Yeah,
being honest and being on a take on, like, hey man, like what you're going through, I'm gonna walk that with you, man, because I want you to be set free.
Right.
Like understanding that, and that goes for any sort of
anything.
Issue.
It doesn't have to be this.
It doesn't have to be this. It can be about anything. Like being able to say, I'm going to be honest, I'm going to walk with you. Even if you lie to me, I'm still going to be there because I know this is what you want. This is what I want for you. So I'm going to take it upon myself to act like what you're going through is what I'm going through right now. And that's where...
But then you still need that heart. You need that heart that you want to change because, you know, sometimes accountability won't cut it unless you're not putting it there.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Yo, so I think this was a good talk for our second episode. I think this was really a good topic. Yeah. So if anyone has any other questions, or we'll definitely be doing something like this again. Maybe have 2 different people up here, have you lead it maybe next time, because like we pretty much just dipped our toe in it in a sense.
Oh yeah.
And we could definitely go more into how it plays.
There's so much more that I could say. And
yeah, man. So we'll definitely dive deeper into it again. And again, if you have any questions or comments, you can leave it below in the comment section. And we can, we'll just talk about more of that stuff, and we'll bring out some more people to talk about this subject too. But yeah, man, I appreciate you.
Thanks, man. Thank you for having me.
Seeing you, bro. And yeah, we'll see you guys next time.